Hey everyone! So for today's video I'm going to be doing something a bit different, and I'm actually going to be doing a kind of food review in Star Citizen. And I was hoping that the Mercury Star Runner would be out by now so I could do some videos on that, but it looks like that's still going to be a couple weeks until that comes out. So I will be doing videos on that as soon as it comes out, but for now I'm going to be looking at food in Star Citizen. So food mechanics were added in 3.9 along with the other survival mechanics, like the different temperature and weather effects that changed how long you survived on different planets. Then the food system was kind of expanded in 3.10 because they finally added bartenders to certain locations, and 3.11 added more food to orbital stations and rest stops when they did the redesign. So food in Star Citizen is definitely still in a sort of basic state of implementation, and I'm sure they're going to be changing it in the future, but certain areas like microtech and orbital stations are pretty well fleshed out for now. Okay, so in this video I'm not really going to be focusing on stats in terms of how good each food is at replenishing your hydration and hunger, but mainly what's available and where it's available. I would have liked to have been able to compare the stats, but besides what's in the descriptions when you click on the about item about the food, there's not really a feasible way to test each food and how much hunger it replenishes, because it takes several hours for your food meter to go down, so there wasn't really any practical way for me to test any large quantity of food items, just because that would be way too much waiting. Eventually, the nourishment stats of food will probably be important, especially on longer expeditions where you're going to want to take nutrient-dense food, but right now it's not really a big deal. As you can see here, even in this armor with pretty limited inventory space, I can carry quite a bit of food and drinks, and this amount here would last for hours and hours of gameplay. And also the food is very cheap, so it's pretty insignificant to buy one food versus another. So yeah, you don't really have to worry about the stats of the different food and how good they are compared to each other, at least for now. So what you've been seeing in the background is Everus Harbor, and other orbital stations like the ones found above Microtech and ArcCorp are going to be very similar to this, and also any of the larger rest stops are going to be very similar. So with this new redesign, they have a pretty convenient food stand outside of the hangar area, which has beverages and food, so that's really all you need if you just want to refill your meter, but there's more options in the Galleria section along with the shops. So yeah, I'll take a look at a different orbital station above Microtech in a second, but they're pretty much all the same, just with different varieties and different arrangements in the food court. So now I'm going to head over to Crusader, but since we're doing a food review, I needed to make sure to have the right ship, and the nice bathroom in the 600i is definitely going to be useful after all those burritos I just had. Okay, so the Crusader system has two unique stations, but it doesn't have a landing zone yet. This will be added later, but for now, it's just Grimhex and Port Olisar. So Grimhex is one of the locations that actually got a bartender added to it, and there's also food available in the weapons shop upstairs. So bartenders are still pretty hit or miss now, and they really depend on how well the server's doing. If the server isn't very overloaded, then they work pretty well, but most of the time, they're pretty unresponsive, and it's very hard to get a drink. Also, this makes it hard in other locations to tell if they've actually added a bartender AI to a bar or if it's just an NPC behind there, because they can be unreactive for multiple minutes. But yeah, Grimhex doesn't have many options in terms of food, but if you just need to fill up those nourishment and hydration bars, then you can do so.
Be with you in a minute. Evening. What can I do you for? Choice.
I'll have a beer.
Yep, coming right up.
Port Olisar really doesn't have much in the way of food, and it's also inconvenient to get in there in my food review attire, since they don't have any hangars. The options you have are the water that's found here in Kasaba, the clothing store, and there's food bars and prepackaged meals that are available in the weapons store, and that's really it for Port Olisar. Like a lot of the other locations we're going to be looking at, these pretty much just have the bare minimum so that you can replenish those hydration and nourishment bars, but I'm sure as they continue to add food related features, these stations will get a second look to make sure they have an actual food option. So next we're going to head over to Microtech, and this is the area with the most developed food options because it was the landing zone that was added when the food mechanics were added. So just a quick look at Port Tressler here, which is another one of the orbital stations. It's very similar to Everus Harbor, which is where we started out. You've got the food stand over by the hangars, and then you have a bigger food court area in the Galleria section that you can get to by taking the internal station elevators. I do like these food court shops. They're pretty well done, and they've got a variety of options. Now onto the planet of Microtech, there's a lot of options here. So right when you land, you can get some food at the store over here in the spaceport, where you can also buy Pico the Penguin. There's a few different options here, including some meal bars and different types of drinks.
That's pretty much everything we got.
Now if you take the train to the Commons, that's where you get a lot of unique options. And these are different from what's found in the space station food courts. These are unique restaurants that are only found here on Microtech so far. I'm a fan of Whammers, which is a burger shop, but there's also healthy options, like juice stores and stores that sell fruit. The level of detail at these different restaurants is pretty amazing, and before doing this video I hadn't really taken the time to appreciate all the work that had gone into making the menus and different food models and everything at these different restaurants. Also, Microtech definitely has the best bar. Wally's Bar is a really cool location with the big dome and all the different lighting and music and just the overall interesting layout of the building around it. So yeah, overall Microtech is definitely the best place to go for food, and all of the restaurants here are really refined and unique. They each have their own theme and they all kind of make sense for what they're going for, and it really adds to the immersion. I'm sure the other landing zones will eventually catch up to this sort of standard, but Microtech was the one that was implemented along with food, which is why it's so much better than any of the other places we're going to be looking at.
Proceed to assigned landing bay.
Now for almost the complete opposite of Microtech, Levski is probably the worst landing zone for food. All I could find was this stand here in the bazaar with some prepackaged stuff. This isn't unique to this area, and this is the same stuff that you can find at different food stands or shops all across the verse. Also, there's a couple of places that look like they could sell food, like this noodle stand here, but there's no actual food to buy there yet, and I don't really like that. So hopefully they eventually get around to adding actual purchasable food at these food stands, but for now there's very limited options on Levski. The one good thing about Levski though is that you only have to ride an elevator to get here and buy some food. You don't have to take a long train ride like you would at the other landing zones. So the next landing zone I wanted to take a look at is Loreville. And like I said, you do have to ride a train to get food here. There's nothing available at the spaceport, so it's a pretty long time commitment if you do want to replenish your nourishment here. Also, I did go to the bar, but it doesn't seem to have a working bartender. I waited here for a couple minutes, but he didn't really seem to react to me. And even if it were a working bartender, there's no food located anywhere near the bar, so it's not all that useful. What I did find though was this one random stand with water and a few other drinks. Also, there are more what I'm going to call fake food stands here, where it looks like a food stand and should be a food stand, but you can't actually buy anything. So again, I'm sure they're going to be adding more features to these other landing zones and have more restaurants and not just food stands, but I hope to eventually not see any of these fake food stands anymore, because it's kind of confusing if you're a new player and you're trying to get food, and some food stands actually let you buy food and some don't let you buy anything. So the only place on Loreville that I was able to find food at was Tammany & Son, which is a mining equipment sort of outfitter shop. But if you are on Loreville and you need to buy something to eat, you can go here. Okay, so the last landing zone is Area 18. And the selection here is a bit better than Loreville, but it's still pretty annoying to get food here since you do have to ride the train again. There's nothing available at the spaceport. Also, I think there is supposed to be a bartender here, but I guess he was taking a break when I got here, because I didn't see anyone behind the counter at all. So I wasn't able to get anything at the bar here, but there is quite the variety of food stands available. There are still a few of the fake food stands, but there are a lot of real ones too, and they have more than just the nutrition bars. In addition to these food stand options, there's also a Kasaba and a Cubby Blast, and those have water and food respectively. So Area 18 does have a few options, but it's still pretty inconvenient, and it's only food stands and no actual restaurants yet. So the last type of place where you can get food would be a small rest stop. So these are a lot smaller than the big orbital stations, and I actually like what they've done here. There's no food in the hangar area, so it's kind of inconvenient because you do have to take the internal elevator, and there's only a couple of options in the Galleria area, and there are some of the standard food court options. However, I think it's fine to have a few less options at these smaller stations because it helps the station feel smaller, which they visually are, so it wouldn't make sense if it still had the same level of amenities as something like a big orbital station above a large planet. And anyway, taking this internal station elevator is still much faster than riding the train at Loreville or Area 18. It's not hard to do better than those two options. So my overall thoughts on food in Star Citizen are that if you want to take a practical approach to fulfilling those survival requirements, you can either backspace and respawn to replenish everything to full, or just get your food at stations so that you don't have to spend too much time riding trains or anything to go get the food. And especially with the new interior redesign, you don't even have to go to the food court, so it's pretty fast if you do want to actually eat and drink instead of just respawning. And in terms of how it affects gameplay, if you are out mining or caving for a while, you can run out of hydration pretty quickly, so taking along a few water bottles is pretty useful, but like I said, these don't take up that much space in your inventory, and it'll last you a long time if you just take a couple of them. Food lasts even longer than water, so right now both of these things are a pretty minor consideration, even if you are planning on doing a pretty long on-foot exploration. If you're going for a food experience though, you're definitely going to want to head over to Microtech, and like I said, there's crazy attention to detail there, which will probably eventually make its way to the other landing zones. So this was kind of a silly video, but there was a lot of work put into this stuff, and I hadn't really taken the time to appreciate it before this. But let me know what you guys' thoughts on this are. On one hand, it seems a bit excessive for something that doesn't really add too much to the gameplay to spend this much time on it, but the restaurants on Microtech are so well done that it really does add to the immersion. And also with the lack of gameplay features recently, I feel like the designers who were doing this probably wouldn't have had much else to do otherwise. But let me know what you guys think. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and check back later for updates on the Mercury Star Runner when that finally comes out. I'm really excited for that ship, and I'll be trying to get a video up on it as soon as it comes out. Anyway, that's all for this video, and thanks for watching.